you are in strategic planning for local groups. I didn't put the word sex in the title or 101, and yet we still have a great crowd. So thank you all for showing up. I'm John Recht. I'm the chair of the Leadership Development Committee for the American Mensa Committee. I'm also second vice chair, and I'm co-presenting with Ken Silver.
I'm Ken Silver. I am also a member of the Leadership Development Committee. And John and I have worked together on several committees, that committee, the planning committee, and I'm RBC in Region 4. And one of my goals this term was to have at least our large groups, we have 5 very large groups in Region 4, was to have them develop strategic plans. And we're about 60% of the way there. And I see one of my LOCSECs there that's going to make it 80%. So we're doing really well.
And there's a lot of folks here. I don't think we're going to have time for introductions, unfortunately. I'd like to do that, but I am going to say one thing before we get started. I brought a pile of paper and a pile of plastic, and the plastic equals the paper. Okay. So on those CDs that are sitting on the table where all the water is a copy of every one of the handouts that we're going to refer to today. You can take them home, put them on your computer, and you'll have a strategic planning course in a box to show you everything you need to do to get started with this. Obviously, you'll have questions down the line, but and we're here to help with that. But you've got all that material. We also have almost all of that's on the CD in these paper handouts. There's a few in the chair there. They're lined up. There's a bunch more on the table. Take one of each if you want the paper version of these handouts. We're going to make reference to them in the talk. If you don't have them in front of you, don't worry about it, because I don't expect you to read through, a 3 or 5 or 58-page document while we're talking. But it's there for your reference and to help you out if you want to do this stuff. One handout I didn't give in paper is a 58-page PowerPoint. It's only on the CD, but you'll find a reference to it here.
That's the CD that you're doing now?
The CD that we're handing out.
I'm sorry, your PowerPoint.
Our PowerPoint is also not in the paper, but it is on the CD.
On that.
Okay. And one last thing about that, I'll be happy to email you all of the materials today as an attachment if you want to do that with us afterward. Just before we get started, just quickly, I'd just like to get a sense of who's here. How many of you are LOCSECs or on your XCOM from your local groups? Almost all. Excellent. You're really our target audience because you are the folks that are going to be able to make this happen in your local groups. You're going to be able to bring it up to your board, talk about how to organize around doing a strategic plan that's going to help you solve problems in your group, and that's what we want to do. And we'll show you how we were able to do it with American Mensa and how others are doing it. So let's try that. How do you do it? That? Do I have to be standing in front of it?
You should probably try this one.
That one?
Yes, because it seems to be up here.
There we go.
Okay. What's ahead today? An overview of strategic planning methods. Like I say, we have too much information. We'll never be able to cover it all. We're going to go through slides kind of quickly, but it's all there. Their value to you as a leader of your local group, and the basics of making knowledge-based decisions on issues that concern your members. And the whole idea of doing strategic planning is to make knowledge-based decisions. Okay? That's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to do. Rather than make decisions where everybody kind of sort of talks and they think they know what's going on, you prepare information in advance and you make knowledge-based decisions. Then you craft your motion after you've had your chance to bring some information to the table and discuss it. Another benefit of strategic planning, it helps you know what's been done before and to build on the work of what's happened in the group in the past. This was a flaw with the American Mensa Committee. When I first got elected as RBC for Region 8, we were doing strategic planning meetings annually, but it seemed like we were talking about the same things over and over and over again. We didn't have a foundation. We didn't have anything that helped us understand how to get from what we've done before to where we were going in the future. And we built that foundation when we built our strategic plan. And now we can hand off material to the next group, the next AMC, that tells them what we've done and what we're still working on. And they have some history and the basis for making decisions. Here's our learning objectives for today. This actually is going to be part of the Leadership Development Workshop sessions. We have Leadership Development Workshop pages on our national website. I invite you to take a look at them. If you haven't been part of a Leadership Development Workshop in American Mensa, we'd like to encourage you to think about that. If there are problems in your local group that you need to solve, you'll find all sorts of resources to help you with those problems. Material to find out how to do that is on the national website. Dana Spinney is here. Dana? Dana is our Leadership Development Workshop Coordinator for American Mensa. She will be happy to help you put together plans in order to do a Leadership Development Workshop in your local group. We have a budget. It can only go so far, but if you are interested in doing one, we can help you get that together. It requires some planning, usually at least a 6-month timeline to put this together. We're working on a current budget year that's already 3 months on. So if you're thinking about doing this, I encourage you to get started on it pretty soon so that we can do it in the current budget.
I think you make a comment.
Please.
Local groups can do these. It doesn't have to be a big, especially if you do it at the local group level. A lot of times LDWs have been done at a regional level. They take a whole weekend and people wind up staying overnight, catered meals, the whole thing like that. That gets expensive. Leadership development workshops can easily be done, especially if you're trying to do a strategic plan for your group. And that's where I came in. And what I've done is used local group LDWs as a springboard for creating a strategic plan. And the typical format of that would be a one-day event, and people are the local people from the group, and you do it for a few $100s. You're buying people breakfast, you're buying people lunch, you might buy them dinner too, but it doesn't have to add up to that much, and nobody's staying in hotels, and you don't have to wait around for our budget. You can probably do it for a few $100s and still get an awful lot done in your group.
Exactly. In fact, we have a guide for doing this. Ruth Marvin and Oregon Mensa did it last year. We have what's called board retreat that we also fund. This is part of the LDW program. And we have a retreat planning guide online. So if you think about doing your strategic planning session with just your board and maybe a few invited people, your area coordinators or the people that you think you'd like to have input on, but keep it to a relatively small number of people who are going to do this in this planning, you can do it in the form of a retreat for a lot less money. And we've got the way to do that. I'm not going to read that. I think you all had a chance to read that. So what is strategy? Well, this is a fellow named Glenn Tecker. Glenn Tecker and Tecker Associates, Lee Wentz was his partner, and the two of them came and helped American Mensa build our strategic plan. So I've put his definition from quite some time ago. By the way, strategic planning has been going on for a long time, which we will tell you about. Here's how Tecker defines strategy. If this is a little bit intimidating because it seems like plan speak, I want you to know that it really can be a lot simpler than that. This is the beginning of the 58-page handout from Joanne T. Hackles on strategic planning. That's in it's a PDF PowerPoint. She makes it a lot simpler. If you feel more comfortable reading her, she can say, what is strategic planning? A process for determining where you are, where you intend to be, and how you're going to get there. That's what that says. Okay.
My comment about this is that we've gone around in circles for years and years and years without ever getting a strategic plan, and then we decided to. I think I've been on for 3 terms. John's been on for 4. I think it was the closest vote ever to allocate $40,000 to bring in consultants and we brought in a consultant. She worked through us. That was Lee Wenz. She worked with us. We wound up with a strategic plan that works for us, continues to work. That $40,000 has paid for itself, I'm sure, 100 or more times over in terms of making us more focused and using our staff better.
Yeah, many, many times over, and you can do it in your local groups too. Here's a couple recommended readings. We have strategic planning. It's an article several pages long by Chris Ahoy from Iowa State University. Excellent article. You can find it online too, and really, really makes it very, very clear what strategic planning is about. Excellent article in the Joanne T. Hackos. Joanne says, why do it? To control the things you can control and deal with the things you can't. It's one way for your organization to add superior value to your customers. It's your responsibility as a manager, and if you don't do it, someone else will. Okay, you can debate what she says, but there's no doubt that it's valuable. And by the way, this has been going on for a very long time. This is not something brand new. This is from an article by a fellow named Philip Blackerby, and he says, in ancient Greece, there were elected military leaders. They were called, and I don't pronounce ancient Greek too well, strategoi. All right, anyway, the strategoi were elected military leaders, so this has a military basis. They advised the political leaders about strategy, and then they decided on tactics, strategy, tactics. Tactics is kind of like your action plan. Strategy is your overall plan for how you're going to get where you need to go. In the 1920s, the Harvard Business School developed a model which was then kind of codified these practices for the first time and began to be used by business. And it became a standard tool by the 60s. It's had its adherents. People kind of got away from it at a certain time. But then it really started going again in the mid-1980s when it became a requirement for government agencies in the United States. And today, wide use by business, government, and nonprofits. You'll find it all over the place, and there's tons and tons of materials about how to do it. We do management, and there's some things that you have to do. There's all sorts of routine board business. You have to pay attention to the legal environment. You have to make, there's a lot of decisions you have to make, even if just routine appointments and that sort of thing. That's not strategy necessarily.
But as a board, you're trying to stay as far left as possible. That's the thinking. Stay to the left. You're not going to get all the way to the left, and you're not going to stay there because there's reality and there's work to be done. But as a board, the farther you are to the left, is the ideal situation.
Right, but as you might imagine, looking at this, your typical XCOM is almost all the way to the right. The majority of the work is being done because you're the organization's volunteers. So what we're trying to do is move you to the left. A lot, if you can, because we want you to think about the overall, the strategy, and not just the day-to-day, what am I going to do tomorrow, but what am I going to do a couple years down the line? What are the major things? Are we having problems with testing? This is a very common one in the local group. So what's going to be your strategy to getting your proctors out there and getting testing done? What kind of problems are they faced with? You can put together a little work group for your own local group that will solve some of those problems that are going to have ultimately a big impact in the national organization, because every group has their own individual problems. Okay. How to put together a strategic plan. Another great handout by Tecker Consultants is this thing called Building the Plan. It's a few pages long. It's just really kind of a summary of what's in a plan rather than telling you how to build it. But we have, in October 2009, there was a great PowerPoint that we distributed to the board of American Mensa. It's our annual planning review and update. It was not just a review and update, it was essentially a how-to build a strategic plan. And I've got a number of the slides in here. Here's kind of the format, what you're overall trying to do. This is the general outline. So at the very top is what we call the mission and the vision, or in this case, we're talking about the core purpose and core values. Then you've got the big audacious goal, we had a big overriding goal, and then there are sub-goals. We have sub-goals under leadership, governance, finance, and membership, and those are major goals. Then we have sub-goals, or what we call strategic objectives under that. Then you finally get down to what are we going to do about that, and that's your tactics and your action plans, and what it takes in order to put them on. So it's all this hierarchy, and the thing is, we can connect every one of these things down here with something up there. So if it's not up there, why is it down there? You know, why are you doing it if it's not part of your overall goal? And if you are doing it and it's not up there, well, maybe it should be. So there is an interaction there. You have to figure out what it is you want to do, and then, you know, if you are doing it, does it belong up there? If it doesn't, don't do it.
You may see some literature referring to the big audacious goal as the big hairy audacious goal, but somehow there were some people that didn't like the word hairy. so we X'd that. And then somehow I think we even X'd audacious out of the term. But there is a famous article or book that refers to a big hairy audacious goal.
Any questions at this point? Are we going too fast? Good. I didn't think so. We are. That's okay.
Yeah, I actually.
Go ahead.
I like everything I'm seeing here, and I have a hard time believing that I can get people in my group to take our group seriously enough to be something more than Saturday night parties, and to actually engage in this. And it just sort of makes me feel tired when I think about trying to get to this, to get people to have a vision of the local groups needing something like this.
Well,
that's going to be part of what I'm going to talk about.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Ken's actually.
I'm kind of here on this part of it is really John's. John put it together, but the fact that I've had some actual success working with groups to build these. That's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm the big picture guy. He's the rubber meets the road guy. So here's more of the overall outline, explained in detail what the vision is, what the mission, the core values are. These are all taken from American Mensa's strategic plan, which we also have in the handouts, and you can. It's looks like that. You can find it online. Go to our strategic planning pages. It's there, and you can see it in its current form.
I'm going to tell you, I live by that thing. I have copies of that document on every desk in my house because I'm always thinking about something that relates to that, and I want to have it without looking for it. It's really how we operate, or it's how I think about American Mensa.
I have to say, I was so pleased and gratified when we hadn't even passed the final version of the strategic plan yet, and the finance committee went ahead and organized their budget in the 2009 budget year when they were doing their meetings, their budget finance committee meetings. They already anticipated and began putting the budget together according to the strategic plan. That's how seriously we took it. It got buy-in right away, and we actually put our plan together in possibly record time, and the folks from tech were amazed at how well we came together to do this. And really what we quibbled over was some wording down, at the lower levels. We came easily to agreement on what our higher level things were. So strategic outcomes. This is more of just what these things mean. Strategic outcomes is what you're reviewing on a more regular basis. It's the lower level goals. Okay, so you're looking at your goals and seeing if you need to revise the goals, but these are the lower level goals. And in the ideal world, you'll accomplish a goal and go on to another goal. But you know what? Goals are often so complicated and so involved that you'll always find that you're looking at it and finding something else that you need to tweak and work on. So really the planning cycle is a continuous circle. where you've got a goal, you've got an action plan, you try to accomplish something, you implement it, then you evaluate it, then you go back and see what it is that we need to change, update, add, subtract in order to go on to the next goal. So you have to think of this as a cycle, not easier for them to do the work. And then who can do it? Well, you look around and you see who's sitting at the table, but there's other people not at the table that you can bring in. That's always something you need to think about. Mentoring your next group of leaders is one of your jobs as a group. And I don't think I can emphasize that enough. You know, I really think that's your number one job, is if you want this organization to continue, is to find the next leaders and mentor them, bring them up to speed, make them part of it, give them things to do, get them involved.
Reward them, make them feel good.
Reward them. Always reward your volunteers. And what are the ethical implications? And then, how do you do it? Well, Tecker says, first of all, do what we're doing today. Figure out what it all means. Try it out. Examine one or two issues. If you don't do that, you haven't gotten started. Get started. Take an issue. Try this approach. Then alter the board meeting agenda, like we said. Try to do strategic things first. And then you refine and adjust the process over time. Questions? Okay. Ken.
I'm on. Do you have any of this on, or should I hand this out?
It's available.
Okay.
Ken, this is an article that Ken did.
It's on this month's interval, and this all seems really, what we've done so far can seem really complicated. And I had this, I was doing an LDW, you know how we had we had this series of contests, and that's how we were distributing LDW money to groups within regions. And the person that was doing leadership development before John, Peggy Panky Smith, had this idea. And she had this idea that you didn't have to have a whole weekend thing. You could have, she called it, if you see Peggy, she looks like a cheerleader. She's so cute. So she had these things that are called pep rallies. So, and that would be a one-day LDW. And so, because we weren't having a lot of LDWs, and people were afraid of them because they were too big. It was too big a project. It was too complicated. So she said, well, let's simplify it. Let's just make it a one-day event. We'll get people in. We'll get people out. It won't be that expensive. So, so we started having pep rallies. So, as RDC in Region 4, I wanted to make sure that if a group got their money, the event would actually happen. So I volunteered to facilitate whatever happened that day. So I was, whoever decided to run it within the group, I stayed on them. I made sure that they made all their arrangements. I helped them, I asked them, you know, and I helped them decide what they were going to talk about that day. So in 2010, my Central Indiana, basically Indianapolis group, won this thing. And they put it off, they put it off, they put it off. It was getting to be the end of the year, and we didn't want to waste the money, so we did it. And once they got into it, they had a lot of enthusiasm about it. So we picked, on the website, there's a whole list of these issues that you can discuss at an LDW, and it's framework. It's not everything, but it's framework, and then it gives you a basis for your discussion. So we're going along. We had a couple of topics that we discussed, and we were about halfway through the day, and I looked up. I had this. It was like lightning, you know, or I said. I looked up and I just stopped. I said, you know what we're really doing here? We're developing a strategic plan for the group. We're going through, we're developing, we're discussing all these topics and issues that are important to the group, and we're suggesting solutions, we're saying what's important to us, what's not important to us. And fortunately, we had the secretary of the group was taking notes on the day, and we had all these notes. So we kept doing it, and of course we didn't start with the idea that we were going to create a strategic plan, but I had all these notes, and when we were done, we boiled them down, and we gave them something that wasn't as good as as I knew it could be, but at least it gave them an idea of what they could do, and they've agreed to keep working it. So then the next year, my St. Louis group won, and fortunately the guy, it was interesting because it was the kind of thing where an individual member of the group would make the entry. So the guy that won happened to be an MBA. He was really into this. He thought it was really great, and he wanted to really be involved. Usually you'd have to pull teeth to get anybody to help, but no, this guy really wanted to be involved. So we got together and we said, no, just remember we're going to be discussing all these things, but at the end of the day, what we really want to come out here, what we really want to come out with is a list of strategic goals for the group that you can operate under. And so this was a little bit better organized because we had our goals set at that we were actually going to do this, and we thought about it as we were working through the day. So that's what we did. So we had 5 topics. It was really 6, but I grouped a couple of them together because we talked about recruitment and retention and PR as separate, but they kind of relate together. So then, and then when we were done, you can see this if you've got the copy of this. They came out with a list of what they call strategic goals. It may not be the perfect format, but it works for them, and they've been operating under this, and they're making a lot of progress. They're real happy with it. And so after a while, I asked them, "Well, do you want to move? This is the bottom. This is the bottom of the plan. Do you want to work upwards?" And they had already discussed that, and they decided that American Mensa's upper level big goals and core values and missions and all that was fine. They didn't need to they said, well, you know, it works for American Mensa, it works for us too. And they made a thoughtful decision on their part for them to say, we're going to operate under American Mensa's, the top part, and then we're going to have our own strategic goals that work for us. And it's working. And the Indianapolis people, in fact, I was talking with them last night, and they said, it's working, we're using it. And now we're going to go and do some more. The Lokesek from Wisconsin, Ellen is here, and they're talking about having one, and Chicago's having one. And the first one I did was Minnesota, my own group, because I wanted some practice. I wanted to see how it would work. And we had a strategic plan from about 10 years ago that's long gone. We don't even think about it, but we'll also revisit that. But what I want to emphasize was how simple this day was, but how useful it was. And we invited everybody but we only got a handful of people. But the people that showed up, they had like 800 members in their group, or between 700 and 800 members, and they had about 25 or 30 responded that said they were going to come, and it was the middle of October, and it was 82 degrees and it was beautiful. So we wound up with about 18 out of those 30 people actually there. But the people that were there and that ran the gamut, I mean, we had most of the officers, but we had just regular members too. And some of the regular members hadn't really been involved, but they came out for this and they had good ideas. And the idea is to, when you're doing this, you're engaging people, and you've got this format where there's gaps, and you're filling in the gaps. You're filling in the gaps for how it works for your group. So it's very personalized because you're doing it yourself. So in that respect, I would suggest, from my experience, you don't have to make it a board retreat. You're going to get the people that want to show up, and you're going to get input from every member, not just the top members. So But what we saw was a lot of enthusiasm, and it really hasn't flagged at all because they've got something that's useful. But again, it's the bottom, it's the very bottom, it's there, and maybe not everything is absolutely what you would call strategic, but it's still part of what they consider their to-do list, and they're working on it, and it's evolving. It's like I said, you solve one goal, and while you're working on it, you think of more goals. So it's not a static document, and you continue to work it. But it's how they run their board meetings now. It's what they use, just like American Mensa uses a strategic plan in board meetings. Ellen?
Well, and also all the people that you invited, aren't they all kind of potential candidates for next term?
Well, that's the point. This is supposed to be a leadership development.
Yeah.
So what we did is we used a leadership development workshop, and we called it a leadership development workshop. But what we wound up with, and what our goal was at the end of the day, was to have a list of strategic goals for the group to operate under. And it was really simple, and it was really inexpensive, and you don't have to be afraid to do it. And it doesn't have to be we have this whole idea of what strategic planning is, and it may seem kind of complicated to you, but I don't want you to put that off. I don't want that to put you off, because I have two examples now of how just doing something simple and involving people and asking them for their ideas, and because the people did this themselves, they have such ownership of this, and they have pride in it, and they're moving along, and they're making progress for their group because they did this. So I have a lot of enthusiasm for this, and it was a model that I was trying to create and see if it would work. And the fact that it's working now and getting all this positive feedback from the groups really has me motivated and wanting to spread the word about how it can work. So when you're talking about you don't know how your group would respond to this, I would say if people show up and you give them something to do and you tell them this is important for the group, and you make it easy for them and you make it fun for them, that they'll respond, because I've never seen it not happen.
And we've actually gotten to the point that we have our objectives and goals laid out. It's the implementing, getting them done, that I'm actually getting very excited listening to the two of you about whether I can get them to go that next step.
So you've got your goals.
Yeah, we're halfway there, I think.
Yeah, well, maybe more than halfway if you've. So I don't know if they're convinced though. Did they create these goals themselves?
Well, this was last year's board. Now we got a new board.
Okay.
So.
Well, maybe go through the process again, or get some other decide what topics that might feel more important, because you want your people involved to feel ownership, so that they'll take these goals and run with them.
If I could throw one thing in that I was really proud we did, we got a grant also, and we paid mileage. Oregon is a huge state, and we had more people coming from outside the Portland area than we've ever had, but the mileage alone was more than what the grant was that we got. So for those of you who have larger areas, think about paying some mileage to get your people around.
Good investment if you've got a lot of money that you've accumulated over the years. I know not every group is so fortunate, but many are. You'd be surprised. And if those who do have those kinds of resources, this is money well spent to build up, things for your membership.
Can I share something we did?
Sure.
We have University of Wisconsin, there's a group with Scout, and they actually have a class that works with nonprofits. So we actually had them do a membership survey, and the membership survey included what are your needs, and so we have that document already. So, I mean, I would say partner with a university class. It didn't cost us a dime. We have this 8-page document on where we need to go.
Excellent idea.
Stout's a really good school. It's in western Wisconsin. My daughter graduated from there. It was kind of a. It started as kind of like a vocational school, and eventually turned into a 4-year school. But there's always some sort of technical aspect to any of the majors there.
And they want to work with nonprofits. instead of for-profits, because it's easier to get information and information.
And can you imagine getting students involved doing projects for you because they need to do them anyway and they want to do them, and they may join Mensa. I mean, win-win. You
These are
get-
graduate students.
Do you have any empirical results that you can point to? You know, things that, okay, we have welcomed 12 new members this way, and, you know, we have got people involved, X number of people by doing Y. We have got area groups going by. Do you have any of that information?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's what we want from you. One of the things that we are hoping from is that as you accomplish things in your group, we would like feedback. I would like to know that there was some effect, that there was some result like that in your group. And if you can report your successes back to us, I would like to know, as part of the Leadership Development Committee, what we've been able to accomplish. We have on Sunday a LOCSEC Leadership Summit for the first time. I know that some people in this room are coming to that. We started this, and the first thing that I'm going to say to these folks is, at the end of the day, a phrase I'm only going to use once, at the end of this day, we would like from you feedback on what you learned today. But 6 months from now, we'd like to know whether what you learned today had an impact in your local group, what sort of impact it had. And I've got multiple reasons for that. We want to know how things are working out. Evaluation always should be part of what you're doing if you're trying something out. But also, for the next budget cycle, I want to be able to justify to the Finance Committee that, yeah, this was a success and we want to do it again. And the only way to do that is to be able to say, yeah, that was money well spent. It wasn't just a feel-good kumbaya, we all had a good time, we felt, you know, but we went back to our local group and there was nothing we could really point to as a result. I want to know what the results were. So, do we have results in the local group? Well, we're just trying this out at the local group level. At American Mensa's level, we can see a lot of the benefits because it's changed the way we've done business. Now, quantitatively, that's really hard because it's hard to compare, you know, the way we did business the old way to the way we did new. But I'll tell you one thing that Ken already alluded to: our meetings are a lot shorter
And more productive.
and more productive. So I mean, that's a numeric, non-financial kind of benefit, but I can say it's a real benefit. We all know this, and we've passed along better information to succeeding groups. Each new board has gotten good information from the previous board about what the issues were and what we've done about it. Which means you don't sit around the table and say, what did they do? What did they talk about a couple years ago? Oh, let's talk to the oldest serving board member and hear the whole history. I mean, we spent a lot less time doing that.
One more question. Your session on Sunday, is that available to potential LOCSECs or only actual?
Unfortunately, it's only actual, and I'm mentioning it just because it's not a secret, but we could only limit it to a certain number of people for budgetary reasons. And so we invited LOCSECs, and there's some assistant LOCSECs that are part of it this time. But if it's a success, we're going to probably do it again. We'll probably tweak it and do it somewhat differently next time. But we made use of the fact that a lot of people are already here, so American Mensa doesn't have to pay travel costs to bring a whole bunch of people together in one spot. And we are buying people lunch, and there will be some perks for going to this thing. But we are going to have an intensive session of trying to talk about things that we have used to the local secretaries that they can use in their groups, and we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about it.
I don't think our LOCSEC is here, right, Ann?
No.
Okay, so since she's a past and a potential future LOCSEC, I would vote that she could go.
Well, I would hope. We actually publicized this quite a bit to people, and we accepted everybody who responded within the time frame. They actually had several months to respond. We took as many as responded, but we can't really have people now.
I just wanted to respond to the lady earlier about having the goals already set up. I have noticed, like, I'm a worker in a lot of groups, and I found out that once you have goals, that's a great step, but then there has to be ownership and accountability, whether or not you have to report every board meeting. And that's kept it in public. Even in my businesses as a project manager, a
a lot gets done right before there's a project due, and people have to report on whether or not they did their, assignment. But then how do you handle it if you have somebody who's not scheduling the testing calendar? Are they making any steps at all? If you have a local testing coordinator and your goal is to have tests every month, and the next meeting you have a contact meeting library, that was a whole month. And the next meeting you have a contact meeting library this week, it's another month. Then it that's the more interesting situation I found in local groups is when you have a web master and you have a very, very old website and you're not producing and updating it. That they volunteered and you put it together a long time ago. And how do you handle that? And
That's another topic. How do you fire a volunteer?
Oh, that's true.
Definitely.
Nick, you had your hand up?
Yeah, well, a lot of these issues, like I work in the corporate world, right, where we have distributed groups that all have to conform to the city of Illinois and things like that, right? So, are there any tools that are put out by national to help? Like you said, that some groups actually adopted Mensa National's goals as their own because they've already done the work. That's great. All of these groups, everybody has the same issues at some point, right? About how to retain membership, how to grow their membership. Those are kind of standard things, and then individual groups have peculiarities for whatever, right? But for these standard things, it would be good to have some sort of tools provided to help us talk about things, to help track en masse these general things that we all agree on.
Excellent point, and that's actually, we've had especially for those of you who are kind of new to this, we've developed over a course of a number of years a whole bunch of materials on leadership development, and we address issues like that in our leadership development materials. You'll find links to that online. These are designed to be presented in workshops and where you have session topics. They're going on today and tomorrow here. We have about 23 sessions dealing with things like that, topics that we're talking about.
And that's exactly how we started in the group.
And yeah.
From that list of topics, we picked the ones that were important to this group.
I'm actually talking about group to group, how I could network with other people in other groups that are dealing with it and learn from them, maybe even have shared reporting, find out how other people are tracking their metrics so that I can bring that to my group, things like that. So outside of the local group, all of us that are all individually working on these problems, when you said that looking at this, stuff made you tired, right? Because you thought you were pre-thinking that was going to be a lot of work, right? So there's some tools that could help make that easier and make that flow better so that it's not work and, that type of stuff.
It's a great point, Nick, and I'm so glad you came to our Leadership Development Committee meeting because you and I can talk personally about how to put together some more resources like that. We want to put as many resources as possible online so that everybody can have access to it. That's our goal. We've got a lot of good things online right now. The leadership development pages have that material, as I said. We've got our leadership development workshop guide and a number of individual handbooks for officers that have a lot of good materials in it. And we've got a dashboard that has been developed that tracks a lot of numbers about how, it takes a temperature of how we're doing in a lot of different areas. I encourage you to see that. It's updated daily.
But is there a way for people from local groups that are working on the same issues to interact with each other, not just to report to national and have it put back as a piece of paper?
I understood that. I understand that that's what Nick's pointing. I like that. Right now we do have some discussions. I mean, people, the LOCSEC, the list will talk about things like that, and people will compare notes. But to have an organized sort of thing like that is a step beyond. We don't have, we could actually, I can think of all sorts of ways right off the top of my head, but we'll have to talk about that as a coherent sort of strategy. Deborah?
Damn, but 5 minutes.
Thank you. That was the 5-minute one. And I get that. Thank you. Anybody else at this point? Yes.
Just going to make one point earlier, which is about shortening meetings. That is actually a very thought-provoking method of truth. I used to be an IT trainer, and I have a pretty big thing, teach them how to speed up the stuff that they did. And when they get out, they go back to different training processes. Look at metrics on time it takes me to do something else. And in your case, if you persevere, I don't know, cluster on a pretty good plan to do it. Flights, on top of that, each person knows their own personal limit. What's an hour of time worth?
Right.
So if they can shorten it up, still be valuable, especially if you don't know enough.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Well, once we started doing this, I have to tell you, we had some meetings where we finished up, we looked around, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we said, we're done? How could we be
We were
done?"
used to coming back after dinner.
Amazing. Okay, summary, in conclusion, it's a process that'll help you gain more control. Knowledge-based decision-making, think of that, knowledge-based decision-making. That's what we're trying to do. It's not the only model of strategic planning, but I think it's a very useful one. It's a good way to characterize it as what we are doing. And we believe that you'll benefit by learning about the tools and methods and then putting them to use. I'll tell you what, I love going places where everybody does the vision thing, you know, where everybody does brainstorming and they all feel good about that and they came up with a long list of ideas. Well, if that doesn't turn into action, and if you don't have some results and some evaluation, you've only just begun. You did something that felt good, but take it to the next step. That's where it's really neat. Okay, here's who we are. I've got cards with me. For those of you who didn't take one of our handout discs that have all the handouts on it and want one, this works on a Mac or a Windows computer. It's got 15 different documents on it that several megabytes and won't overwhelm you.